In exactly the same way that the Holy Prophet ﷺ knew that what God is telling me is the truth. He never stopped preaching. And in the same way, we won't stop preaching.
It's against the teaching of Islam to force anyone into belief, which is la ikraha fi din. There's no compulsion in matters of faith.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. 7 weeks ago we invited you to join us as we started the 3rd season of Face to Face. Every Sunday we listen to the answers of our Khuddam from around the world as they attempted to answer the questions to the scenarios that we posed to them. So we heard answers about the existence of God, organized religion, why Muslim majority countries fight amongst each other despite claiming to belong to a peaceful religion. We spoke about destiny and how do we know which religion is the right one, just to mention a few. Our underlying aim throughout these shows was to learn and teach us all how we should go about answering these sometimes very tricky questions. By the grace of Allah, being Ahmadis and belonging to this wonderful community of the Imam of the age, the Hakam an-Adl, the Prophet of the age, the Promised Messiah ﷺ, we have been equipped and gifted by Allah, the Promised Messiah and the Khulafa with immense knowledge. This knowledge though is nothing new. Over and over again, wherever you look, whatever book of the Jamaat you pick up and open, it all leads back to the Holy Quran and the Holy Prophet of Islam. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. So the tricky part of these questions was never if that knowledge even exists, but rather where to look for it, what to include, and how to use that vast ocean of knowledge at our disposal. Our judges here in the studio guided our contestants along the way with a lot of effort and thought. And I would like to thank them and say Jazakumullah Ahsanza to all of them. 4 of the Khuddam have now made it to the grand finale. So we're going to take you to Azad Ahmed in the Czech Republic. We're going to take you to Yusuf Pender Sahib in Ireland, Haris Parvez Sahib in Germany, and Bilal Tariq Sahib in Burkina Faso to listen to one last reply to the question that we posed them today. And the question was, you're attending a history lesson and the teacher says to you, tell your classmates about the contributions of Islamic civilization towards education and innovation. What do you say? Now, coming to you at home, sitting all comfy on your sofas, one more time we would like you to get involved and vote for one of our finalists and aid our judges here in the studio in making this very, very tough decision. So go to www.mta/face-to-face and cast your vote. With that being said, yes, this is the last episode for this year, but worry not. If you want to participate in future, then just email us at face-to-face@mta.tv. And one more time, I have the honor, the opportunity to introduce you to our judges here in the studio. To my very far right, we have Amr Safiz Sahib, Chief Editor of the Review of Religions magazine. To his right, we have Atal Mohammad Zahid Sahib, who's a teacher at Jamia in the UK. And to his right, we have Qasid Moin Sahib, the editor of the weekly Al-Hakam newspaper. Jazakumullah Ahsanza and Assalamu alaikum. Welcome one more time. Amr Sahib, you're the veteran here with a 3rd season behind you almost. Give us some thoughts about this year.
It's very fascinating every year. I think this year we've seen naturally as the rounds have progressed, what I've noticed is that they've taken on that feedback to make sure that their source material is always based on the writings of the Promised Messiah and the Khulafa, because that is a true treasure of knowledge from which to gain from. So I saw gradually from round to round people were taking that feedback on. This particular episode, what I've noticed is we have many brothers from the subcontinent, and I think that's actually very brave. If I was told to speak in Urdu for that long, I'd find it very difficult.
The accent factor.
Yes, and there's people from Europe, there's people from different places, and I think the fact that English is not their first language, yet they're able to speak fluently, and some of them have reached the final, that gives credit to their bravery and courage.
Absolutely. Mohammad Sahib?
Yeah, obviously, as Amr Sahib has just mentioned, obviously it has been fascinating. I had a chance to be the judge in the first season of Face to Face, and now I was asked to be the judge again in this 3rd season of Face to Face. And I also agree with Amr Sahib that the contestants have now taken it on board, and they have started quoting more from the reference of the Quran and the teachings of Promised Messiah ﷺ, and the teachings or sermons or addresses of Khulafa. And this has improved their answers to a degree where I feel myself at times that the answer they have given, I probably, had I been in their place, could not have given. But anyhow, overall, the level and of the competition has risen a lot.
So, Qasas, in a situation like this, you still have to look for something to improve. How difficult or how easy is that? I mean, did you get into, heated debates about who should go?
It's so in terms of judging, you're saying. So in terms of judging, I think my experience here has been a great learning experience. In that, one point which I learned is that no matter what the issue is, by the grace and blessings of Allah, within the Ahmadiyya literature, we have the answers. Everything's there. And so even if you may seem a bit worried or apprehensive at first when hearing a question and alarmed, like, well, how am I going to answer this? Yeah. The answer's there. It's just a matter of looking, reading into it. And even for me, sometimes when I would hear the questions that you'd read towards the end of the program, it would strike me like, okay, this is the question. Where am I going to find this information from? And then when you actually go down and listen to their answers, I think listening to their answers was the most helpful thing, because they actually would cite references sometimes, which was helpful. But it was all a very encouraging experience. The fact that everything is there, and it's just a matter of us, whether we are thirsty enough, whether we're inquisitive enough to find those answers.
Well, thank you very much for the last 7 weeks to the judges here as well. Now, going to our first contestant for today, we're going to take you to the Czech Republic. Uzair Ahmed Sahib is with us on the line. Uzair Sahib, assalamu alaikum. Uzair Sahib, congratulations, you've made it to the final. One more time, you have to answer the question. This is a bit different. This is not hardcore religious and argumentation, isn't it?
It is, but at the same time, that it's very relevant in terms of practicing your religion. Because the question that people will ask, what is the practical value of your religion? And the thing that we can use is advancements in science. So I think that things are actually very related.
All right. Well, we're going to listen to your reply, and then the judges will have the opportunity to ask you the 60-second question. This is Uzair Ahmed Sahib from the Czech Republic. Here we go.
So when we talk about the contributions of the Islamic world to science, we can discuss the historical contributions, but it's also important to talk about the modern day situation as well. So starting with the historical look, there was a historian of science from Harvard University named George Sardin, who wrote a book in which he named one best scientist for every 50-year period of history. So from the years 700 to 1300, every single name that he wrote about was a Muslim scientist who made great advancements in the fields of medicine, astronomy, mathematics, chemistry, and many other things. And this was a time when Europe was in fact in its dark ages. So during this time, all of the great learning centers were actually found in the Muslim world, such that people from the rest of Europe used to travel to Cordoba in Muslim Spain to seek scientific education. And the lingua franca of science at this time was in fact Arabic, the same way that it is English today. So if you wanted to learn science or communicate science with other scientists, it had to be done in the language of Arabic. So if we look at today, however, there's no denying that the Muslim world is in a state of intellectual ignorance, compared not only to their own glorious past, but to the rest of the world today. So one exception to this, however, was when Dr. Abdul Salam became the first Muslim scientist to win the Nobel Prize. Now, Dr. Salam was from the same community as myself, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. Now, our founder claimed to be the promised Messiah, and he sought to revive the lost and true teachings of Islam. And he, in fact, argued that the current state of ignorance of the Muslim world, in the intellectual ignorance, is due solely to the loss of these true Islamic teachings. And his current successor, the fifth Khalifa of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, recently delivered an address at the Ahmadiyya Muslim Research Association where he reiterated the same ideas, and he encouraged Ahmadiyya Muslims to study science deeply in order to be able to seek God, in fact. So this is an approach towards science that's actually foreign to most people, that this idea of seeking God through science. But there's a proven historical model of this, because the great Muslim scientists of the past, they wrote that they, in fact, saw science as a form of worship to Allah. And this is exactly what Dr. Salam said as well. And so, as Ahmadi Muslims, as a revivalist community, we seek to revive that same approach towards science today. And so I think you can say that Islam contributed historically to science, of course, but it also has given this entire new generation of Ahmadi Muslims the ambition to strive for that same scientific advancement that Muslims did in the past.
Uzair Ahmed Saib from the Czech Republic with his final submission to the grand finale. Momin Saib, what did you think? And also, you are asking him the 60-second question, please.
First of all, as you asked me my opinion about my opinion on the response which is given by Uzair Sahib, he has given an excellent response to the question, and he very intelligently divided his answer in two parts. And initially he talked about the golden era of Islam, in which Muslims made huge strides in the realm of knowledge and science, obviously. And then he also talked about how Muslims now can emerge once again from the let's say darkness which they are in now, as such, as compared to their past. Obviously, there are Muslim scientists now as well. Yeah. But as compared to their past, how can they come once again, emerge from this apparent darkness? So in these terms, his answer was brilliant. And I want to congratulate Uzair Sahib for that, mashallah. And no doubt he is a very strong contestant in today's final.
Last week you asked him a very tough question, didn't you?
Did I?
Yeah, I think it was Uzair Sahib, wasn't it?
I don't remember asking.
Every question's been tough.
Of course.
So you're right in that manner.
Yeah. All right, Uzair Sahib, after this initial comment on on the answer that you have given, as I'm asked by Raza Sahib to ask you the 60-second question. So my question today relates to the connection between science and religion. As you also talked about seeking God through science, and how Muslims, when they forgot the teachings of Islam, they suffered a decline. So my question is that how can we prove that the advancements which were made by Muslims in the golden era were the result of the teachings which were given by Islam, or they were the result of the teaching which was given to Muslims by the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
Yes, so I would say that we have to look at the motivation that Islam gives us for pursuing science. And that is the distinguishing factor between our approach and the approach of any other worldly scientist. So what we see that Islam gives us is that it tells us to firstly have a genuine interest in whatever we're pursuing for the sake of appreciating Allah Ta'ala's design. So this completely divorces our attitude from realistic approaches towards science. Right? So if you're approaching any matter, your motivation is at the heart of that pursuit, then certainly I think we would be successful in that regard. So this is what science teaches us, that everything is. This is what Islam teaches us, rather, that everything is created for the benefit of mankind. We should seek to understand those benefits more deeply, to appreciate Allah Ta'ala, and to benefit humanity much more as well.
Jazakumullah Uzair Sahib for your answer, and I accept that to be a very strong answer that you have given. You have come back really strong with your answer. There's no doubt, obviously, when we talk about like medicine, chemistry, mathematics, or other realms of knowledge in which Muslims made huge advancements in the golden era. Obviously, there is no doubt that their achievements were great and remarkable. But obviously, at the same time, these subjects, they are not Islamic per se. These subjects are totally different to religion. But how the religion of Islam played its role in basically in the advancements which Muslims made in these realms of knowledge is very important, because in the first place, obviously, Islam is a religion which emphasizes the importance of learning to an extent where I think no other religion has given such importance to knowledge and to acquisition of knowledge and learning. And at the same time, when Islam actually eliminated the differences of race, color, and creed, it helped actually Muslims to acquire knowledge from wherever they could get it. Because the Holy Prophet ﷺ taught them that al-hikmatu zallatul mu'mini, that wisdom is the lost property of a believer, and he acquires it from wherever he gets it. So this actually encouraged Muslims to seek knowledge and to excel in these realms of knowledge and science. And this actually somehow worked as a catalyst for Muslims, which proved a great force for Muslims to excel all others in these branches of knowledge. So this is an important point which I somehow found missing in the answer that you have given. So for this reason, I asked you this question, and you came back with a good answer.
I felt that
Keep
that
it
was
short.
Yeah, very
I mean.
shortly. I felt that was missing as well. If you just mentioned that, that would have been a bit better. But you did sort of summarize it in your, the answer that you gave. So, for instance, when you said in the initial answer, the video recording, we heard you say science is a form of worship to Allah. You could have alluded to this by saying, perhaps, quoting the verse, "Inna fi khalqis samawati wal ardi wa ikhtilafil layli wan nahar la ayatin li ulil albab." That is, surely in the creation of the heavens and the earth there are signs. And in the alternation of night and day, there are signs for men of understanding. So, verses like this, which show that science goes hand in hand with religion, and religion obviously is the ultimate source, but science is used in support to prove that religion is true. If you had mentioned that, that would have been great as well. But otherwise, it was a very good answer. I thought you covered all the important points.
Uzair Sahib, thank you very much to you as well. We're going to quickly move on to Yusuf Pender Sahib, who is with us on the line as well from Ireland. Yusuf Sahib, assalamu alaikum. Well, Yusuf Sahib, you've made it to the finale as well. In today's day and age, what do you think? Is this more relevant for people? Is this more on their mind? Is this something that they're more interested? Or do you think it's still about, dogmatic beliefs? What is this? What is that? Why do you believe this?
I think, unfortunately, there's an issue. If you look at the lack of education and innovation in the Muslim world, people tend to conflate that with Muslim teaching and make the allegation that it's Islam which is holding back the Muslim world from learning. So it's very important to show the world that it's actually the opposite. All of these great inventions, innovations, which we're, the roots of which we're benefiting from today, come from the Muslim world.
Interesting. Good point. Yusuf Sahib, we're going to listen to your reply, and then after that, one of the judges will ask you the 60-second question. You know the format. This is Yusuf Pender Sahib from Ireland.
Generally it takes hundreds of years for great civilizations to emerge. But yet, from the unlettered desert people of Arabia, in just 1 or 2 generations, a great Islamic civilization emerged, which had at its heart the belief in the unity of God, human rights, and an unending desire to learn. The first ever word of the Holy Quran which the angel Gabriel revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was Iqra, which means to read. And the Holy Quran is replete with verses and prayers which exhort Muslims to contemplate, educate, and investigate. And one of those prayers, for example, is Rabbi Zidni Ilma, which means, "O my Lord, increase me in knowledge." Now, did you know that the first ever university which was founded was actually founded by a Muslim woman in North Africa in the year 859? And from that university emerged very many well-known graduates. So one, for example, was the Christian Pope Sylvester II. And if you contrast this with the fact that it was not until the 13th century that the very first university was founded in Europe. Now, many of the inventions and the empirical tools which we use in the West and in universities are actually gifted to us from the Muslim world. For example, algebra, trigonometry, the sciences of history, geography, chemistry, physics. They were given to us by great Muslim scientists such as Al-Razi, Ibn Rushd, and even Ibn Hayyan. Now, if you contrast this with the fact that the Muslim world was experiencing its golden age at the same time when Europe was going through what's known as the Dark Ages. And it's actually by this Islamic knowledge passing into European hands which gave birth to what became known as the Renaissance. Now, I know this may be hard to believe given the current condition of the Muslim world today, but the bright sun of Islamic learning is still rising again on the world. If you look at a great scientist by the name of Dr. Abdus Salam, and Abdus Salam was the very first Muslim to win the Nobel Prize, and he won the Nobel Prize for physics in the year 1979. And he actually accredited the Holy Quran as inspiring him for his learning and investigation. And he actually quoted the Holy Quran in his Nobel Prize acceptance speech. Now, he was a member of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. I'm very proud to say that I am also a member of that community. And it's a community which places great emphasis on education. And the leader of our community, the Caliph of Islam, His Holiness Hazrat Khalifatul Masih the Fifth, he has placed great emphasis on learning, and he has, under his leadership, we have opened many schools and colleges around the world to give the gift of education to every boy and girl, regardless of their fate. And so we hope that in the future, I'm sure, we will see many new great scientists emerge from the Islamic faith for the service of humankind and to better humankind.
Yusuf Pendesai from Ireland with his reply. Before I go to Amr Saab and give him the 60-second question, just a reminder for the viewers at home as well, one more time, that the expressions and the answers given by the contestants do not necessarily reflect the viewpoint and the official answers of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. These are their personal views. Amr Sahib.
Brother Yusuf, Assalamu alaikum. I have the pleasure, I believe, of asking you a question for the second time in this series. So, Yusuf Saab, you spoke very well, you answered very well, and this is the final, so the standard is going up a bit, so we're going to be slightly more critical in a constructive manner, of course. So I would say that you covered excellently. You made some really good points. I think you touched on all the key areas that you needed to touch on. So my only thing I would say as feedback, and it would be my 60-second question, is that you slightly kind of glossed over the actual period of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, in which actually we could argue was the most innovation and most aspect of education being given in the whole Muslim history. Everything afterwards built on that. My 60-second question to you is that can you describe some examples? And when you say education, it's not just obviously science, or it's not just, education is a very wide scope. So please provide some examples from the life of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, about how he brought education and innovation. So you have 60 seconds.
Sure. So the very first thing is that the majority of Arabs at the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, were illiterate. They could not read or write, as was the case of most people who lived at that period of history. So when the Holy Quran was revealed, Muslims had to learn how to read and write so that they could learn the Quran and they could memorize the Quran and they could spread its teachings. So this is one of the ways that the entire generation became literate. And also, I would say the Ashab Safa, who were at the mosque of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, they were very poor people who lived at the mosque because they had nowhere else to live. So they dedicated themselves to learning, and they would learn the Quran and they would teach the Quran, and they educated the entire generation of the Muslims. Another example probably would be that whenever combatants were taken in battle, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would allow them to ransom themselves in a way that if they were educated people, that they could ransom themselves to be free by teaching the Muslims to read and write, and also any other type of
Brother Yusuf, that was really impressive in that short space of time to come with that information. I think I give you credit. And this is exactly, as part of the show, we're trying to help arm the youth with the manners so that they can then go out and speak to other people. And so I would just like to build on what you said, which is a very good answer, that I think in this answer, it's very important to follow the way Hazur has done. If you look at his recent address in UNESCO and also at the Ahmadiyya Muslim Research Association conference, Hazur, in both cases, a large part of his speech was the time of the Holy Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So to add on what you're saying, the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam also established the correct, educated people in the correct form of law. So once when a very high-standing lady committed a crime, many people thought that her crimes could be turned, a blind eye can be turned against it. And the Holy Prophet went so far to say that even if my daughter committed this crime, she should be punished. This is how he established it. He formed a system of taxation where the rich would give to the poor so that everyone could have a level playing field. He established rights for orphans so that they could stand on their own 2 feet. He also brought a system of education so that slaves were abolished. In a time when slavery was rampant, he enabled them to stand on their own feet and develop as flourishing members of society. We talk about immigration. Today in 2019, immigration is one of the most contentious topics in the world, and the world has not found a solution. Yet Hazur has been explaining how when the Muhajirin came to the Ansar in Medina, the incredible bonds of brotherhood they formed, that they were giving more rights than their own people. So, and not just that, he formed a system of public sanitation. He developed wider roads, public hygiene, and so on and so forth. In every aspect of society, the Holy Prophet formed a model society of infrastructure and intellectual development. So just one aspect of feedback, you answered it really well in your second 60-second answer, that it's really important to emphasize the way Hazur does. In the life of the Holy Prophet ﷺ himself, based on what he was revealed by God, he formed a phenomenally innovative society, and he brought revolutionary concepts of education.
In the time of the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, that seed to acquire knowledge, that was actually planted upon which everything else was built upon. See, everybody's learning today something. We're going to take you to Germany to our next... Yusuf Sahib, Jazakumullah Sana, thank you very much for joining us today. Our next contestant is from Germany. Haris Parvez Sahib is with us on the line. Haris Sahib, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Haris Sahib, the German nation being very progressive, being very innovative, is this something that people in Germany are interested in? Is that something that they want to know?
Yes, of course, because the problem is because many people in the school or in my university ask why the Eastern countries, majority, why they don't innovate something, or why they don't do scientific effective work. Because here in the Western countries, we see that we have a lot of innovation, a lot of Nobel Peace Prize laureates.
Jazakumullah Sana, and we're going to go to your video. This is Haris Parvez Sahib from Germany.
If we talk about the Islamic contribution towards education and innovation, I think it is important to look at the pre-Islamic era, where ancient Europe was the center of the scientific world, and at that time Arabs were uneducated and had no contribution towards the scientific world. Then Prophet Muhammad came and brought Islam. In chapter 20, verse 115 of the Holy Quran, it is mentioned, Rabbi zidni ilma, O my Lord, increase me in knowledge. In Sunan Ibn Majah in Hadith, it is mentioned that it is important upon a Muslim to seek knowledge. Those basic teachings of Islam were the driving force and laid the foundation for the golden era of Islam. The fifth Khalifa of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community recently said in a speech in UNESCO, yet Prophet Muhammad established an exceptional education system. He supported the poor and brought the human rights, which led to the golden era of Islam. The fifth Khalifa also said that Muslim scientists, for example, developed algebra, algorithm, the trigonometry was discovered by the Muslim scientists. The Muslim scientists discovered and developed the first camera. The surgical instruments which are still used today were discovered by a Muslim. The blood circulation in the human body was discovered by a Muslim. And Ibn Sina, who was a world-known physician, he wrote a word from his book which is called The Canon of Medicine, which is still held in high regards. Also, the New York Times published an article and said that for 500 years, learning science was synonymous for the Arab language. So we can see the Muslim countries and Muslim scientists played a huge role towards and made a huge contribution towards education and innovation. Then Muslim countries and Muslim people forgot the true teachings of Islam, which Prophet Muhammad mentioned in Mishkat al-Masabi. And the Prophet Muhammad foretold the promised Messiah Islam. The promised Messiah Islam said that his followers will excel in knowledge, and this prophecy was fulfilled by Professor Dr. Abdul Salam, who got the Nobel Prize in Physics. Professor Dr. Abdul Salam said there are more than 750 verses in the Holy Quran which emphasize to seek knowledge, to ponder upon the creation. And this is exactly what the Ahmadiyya Muslim community is doing. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community seeks out to help other communities, to help other people who are poor, who have no educational system. And this is exactly what the Prophet Messiah said. He said there are two aspects of faith, and the second aspect of faith is to fulfill the rights of the God's creation. And the Ahmadiyya Muslim community is fulfilling the rights of God's creation to, like, for example, they have established a organization which is called Humanity First, and which helps to support the poor and to establish schools so people can educate themselves.
Haris Parvez Sahib from Germany. Qasim Sahib, I'm going to ask you to ask him the 60-second question. There's always a lot of information with Haris Sahib, isn't it?
Absolutely. And Haris Sahib, I think within the 3 minutes, the amount of information you could have, crammed into that, I think you did a very good job with that. You got as much information in that as possible. The question now I wish to ask you is that some people say, let's say, for instance, we're in this scenario, you're in the classroom, you've just presented this. Now someone pops his hand up and asks you a question, one of the students, and says that religion, rather than broadening your vision, it limits your vision and scope. And this is something which is often alleged and raised against religion. So the question is, why do you feel that religion does not, or does, whichever, broaden your vision and does not limit your vision and scope?
I don't think that religion limits my vision or stops me from looking towards science or something like this, because even if you look in the Holy Quran, Prophet Dr. Abdul Salam mentioned, and Hazur mentioned this also, that there are more than 750 verses in the Holy Quran which teaches the humankind that they should ponder upon the creation. The Holy Quran tells us, for example, things which one human being could have not known back then 1500 years ago. So religion does not limit my knowledge about science or stops me from researching. Rather, it tells me to go out to look after. And Safir Saab mentioned also this hadith, where it mentioned that lost wisdom is a property of a believer. So, and if we see the other hadith, which is where it's mentioned that seek knowledge, even if you have to go to China, we can see that religion promotes knowledge.
Jazakallah, Haris Sahib, you gave a very good answer. And usually this question is often asked because people tend to look at other religions where there is a lot of interpolation and a lot of change has been made in those religions. And, let's say, for instance, Christianity, a lot of sects believe in changing the traditions, their beliefs to modernize it and keep it in, with the time, take it, keep it along with the time. Now, for instance, it's good that you've mentioned, the Holy Quran has these, verses which encourage knowledge. And there are many examples, throughout the Holy Quran, it says, it uses words like tadabbaru, tafakkaru, you should constantly reflect, you should constantly try to understand. Like the verse I mentioned earlier, inna fi khalqis samawati wal ard, that surely in the heavens and the earth there are signs for men of understanding, and in the creation of the night and day. And obviously, without unity, Muslims are in complete disarray. Without any sort of guidance, there is no one to basically say which direction you should be steering your intellect towards, your education towards, which direction. So for instance, Hazur has time and again reminded us to go towards research. Now, what does this mean? There are many fields of, science which require exploring. So for instance, in only this week's Al-Hakam, we've had an article about honey, and where a lot of research has been presented about honey as shifa'ul linnas, as the cure for all of mankind. that research still, or that article still suggests, and it's true, that honey still has not, unfortunately, been proven in its entirety that it is shifa'un linnas, a cure for the whole of mankind. The Quran said it, but from a science perspective, we as Muslims need to go out there and prove this. It should, ignite our indignation, our passion to want to prove this to be true. So, there are so many sciences, so many knowledges, so many fields of knowledge which require us to pursue. And I think, all in all, you gave a very good answer. Some examples you could have given, perhaps in your initial answer as well, that would have strengthened your answer. But otherwise, like I said, you crammed in a lot of information, which is very good. Yeah, I think you gave a good answer.
I know, it was you who mentioned that hadith, so don't deduct marks from him.
No, it's all right. In terms of the reply which was given by Haris Sahib, I have always admired his answers. They are always well-researched answer, and as Qasir Sahib has just mentioned, that they are crammed with lots of information. I think there is a subtle hint towards the delivery of Haris Parvez Sahib, if he does not mind the positive criticism coming from judges as well. As I said, I am a great admirer of his answers. They are very well researched and well presented. But at the same time, the way he presents is at times as if he is just plainly giving the information without actually any intonations in his tone, or without any ups and downs. They're just plain giving of information, one after another, one point after another. So probably if he improves in terms of his delivery, that would have been really a good point.
Germans are.
Good plus point for him.
Yes, Germans are very efficient as well.
Yeah, of course.
Historically, so that's a good thing. So what I would say is, Haris Sahib, you answered very well. Well done for your answer. And again, you're one of the examples. I think English is not your first language, but the fact that you reached the final, so credit to you for being able to do that. I would just mention two things very quickly to add. Again, going back to the way Hazur does to the life of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, it's very revolutionary. If you just take one example, that we keep mentioning Dr. Salam. Dr. Salam, he refers to this hadith of the Holy Prophet ﷺ that seek knowledge even in China. And he says that, in my view, in my interpretation is that it could not have been religious knowledge the Holy Prophet ﷺ was referring to, because at the time when he said this, all religious knowledge anyone needed was with the Holy Prophet. He brought the perfect message. So therefore, he must have been referring to secular knowledge, scientific knowledge. And he said that, I was thinking, why did he refer to China? Because it gives an international scope. It gives a scope that's something so far away to bring knowledge from everywhere. So it's quite fascinating that this is just one of many examples. We know one thing I would like to say very quickly to Haris Sahib and also to other contestants. I think Qasir Sahib referred to this in a previous program, where in a test you have to look at the question carefully. Now, if this is being asked in a class, it's possible they're asking this because they feel that Islam, God forbid, is a backward religion. Science conflicts with Quran. So it's important, again, we talk about, if you look at the way Hazur answers in some of his classes or press releases, he speaks in a personal way and very direct. And so we have to make this link without letting the person fill in the gap, him or herself, and say, look, what I'm saying proves that there is no contradiction at all between Islam and science. In fact, Islam is beyond science. It supports science and it goes beyond it. And I gave one example in a previous program. There was a deep sea diver. There's some research that we did in Review Religions, and there was a deep sea diver, and he, in the modern time, he went deep under the sea, and he had read the verse of the Quran which describes the different layers of the sea. And just by this one verse, he converted to Islam, because he thought that how is it possible that 1400 years ago, a person who had no education, who was unlettered, or was able to say this in his holy book, revealed by God, describing the ocean as I have seen it in this modern century. So these are just examples that we just have to link it back a bit more directly in the way Hazur does, and say, look, I know that you're probably thinking that Islam is like this, but actually all the examples I'm giving prove otherwise.
I thought that intonation is answering the 60-second question answer, Mohammed Saab. So, Haris Saab, I'm trying here my best. Well, Jazakumullah, thank you very much to you for joining us today. Our last contestant for today is from Burkina Faso. Bilal Tariq Sahib is with us on the line. Bilal Sahib, Assalamu alaikum.
Yes, wa alaikum salam.
Bilal Sahib, scientific question, a lot of knowledge. Is that something that you have to really dig deep into, or is that something that you know as a Muslim?
Yes, because give some examples to support our we have to, I think it is better to do some research before answering one. I think it's better to dig research for answering.
Jazakumullah. For that, Bilal Sahib, we're going to listen to your reply, and then after that, one of the judges will ask you the 60-second question. This is Bilal Tariq Sahib from Burkina Faso.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Islamic civilization established by the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him himself, is based on the value of education, emphasized both by the Holy Quran and by the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. The Holy Quran itself has taught us this prayer, O God, increase me in knowledge. And the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, said, seek knowledge even if you have to go to China. Seek knowledge from birth till death. Seeking of knowledge is a must for every Muslim man and women. Now the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, was not a literate person, but he was a keen promoter of education, and this was reflected after the Battle of Badr, when he freed all those prisoners who agreed to teach Muslims how to read and write. Similarly, under his teaching and direction, Muslim women like Hazrat Aisha radhiyallahu anha excelled greatly in knowledge. In the initial centuries of Islamic civilization, education was conducted in mosques, but we see a significant change during the Abbasid reign, where Islamic madrasas, that is Islamic universities, were established mainly in Baghdad, Iran, Egypt and Spain. One of them was the University of Al-Qarawin in Morocco, labeled by Guinness Book of World Records as world's oldest degree granting university of the world, founded by a Muslim woman, Fatima Al-Fihri. Another great university of that time was Al-Azhar University. Moreover, the Abbasid ruler Harun al-Rashid established an educational institution called Baitul Hikmah, that is House of Wisdom, and there he invited and appointed several great scholars and translators and got several books of Greek, Persian and other languages into Arabic regarding different subjects like mathematics, medicine, astronomy and physics, and these were later translated into Latin, which paved the way for the Renaissance of the West. House of Wisdom later served as an intellectual center for the scholars of various countries of various religions. This very era is considered as the golden era of Islam because Muslims produced a number of scholarly works and scientific discoveries. For example, Ibn Sina, a doctor and philosopher, wrote his Canon on Medicine, which was studied by the European medics till 18th century. Ibn al-Hassam, considered by UNESCO a pioneer in modern optics, and he invented the first pinhole camera. Al-Khwarizmi, inventor of algebra, trigonometry and algorithm, which is the basis of modern computing technology. And among women, we have examples of Labana of Cordoba, Sutata al-Mahamali, who excelled greatly in mathematics. And today, we have examples like Professor Abdul Salam, Nobel laureate in physics. Jazakallah.
All right, that was Bilal Tariq Sahib from Burkina Faso. Also, a lot of information that has been put into his reply. Amr Sahib, you have the 60-second question with Bilal Tariq Sahib. I think we're still reconnecting a little bit, so if you want to pass your comments.
I think he gave a really strong answer. He started off with the verses of the Holy Quran and he gave some examples based on Islamic teachings. Then he went on to mention the oldest university that was set up by a Muslim woman, Fatima Al-Fihri. He also referred to some other aspects. So I think this is all very strong. It's very strong and it's the last contestant. And it's going to be very difficult for us to decide who is the winner out of these four. They've all been very strong. Am I correct that Bilal Saab is back now? Bilal Saab, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Bilal Saab, you heard just now what I said?
Yes, some of it.
Okay, no problem. Well, let me come on to my 60-second question. Since this is the last contestant, yes, Raza Saab, the last contestant of the show, I think it would be fitting to ask something relating to the current age and link it with Khadr Khalifatul Masih. So my 60-second question to you is, how have the Khulafa Ahmadiyyat and Khalifatul Masih Khamis, may Allah be his helper, outlined the way forward for Ahmadi Muslims and the Ahmadi Muslim community to reach the highest levels of education now? What is the vision of the Khulafa and how they outline we should achieve that going forward in terms of education and innovation?
Well, I think the fifth caliph of the Ahmadiyya Muslim in his recent and addresses in UNESCO. And some weeks Amra conference said that now you continue the legacy of the ancient Muslims. He said that we have to base our base because Holy Quran teaches that all of this is being built for the. So if you want to do your research on the Quran and for the betterment of humanity, and because
I'm just going to cut you off here because the voice is not very clear, so I want to give you the same chance as everybody else. I think, Amr Sahib, you're missing half of what Bilal Sahib is saying. So we're going to try to reconnect, maybe just not video, just audio, so you can hear exactly what he has to say. Maybe you're going to have to ask him any question. So, yeah, in the meantime, if you want to, Qasid Sahib,
I think
give your
generally,
comments.
I was thinking actually that this question, like Amr Sahib said, it's the last contestant, it's the last program, it's the last, program until, the coming season. What's important about this is, it's often asserted, what has Islam given to towards education and innovation, and we often cite examples, and I've seen a lot of the contestants, they've cited examples from the 9th, 10th century, and automatically the question comes up, what happened? Where did the decline come? Why didn't anything happen later on? But it's important to understand, and then obviously the contestants, they often come to the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat and, the Professor Abdul Salam Sahib and various other achievements of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, the efforts towards education and giving to the underprivileged. But it's important for us now as Ahmadi Muslims, to understand this as a scenario and this as an issue of today, that people are asking this question. So we must come forward and say labbaik at the voice of Khalifatul Masih, who is constantly instructing us to go into fields of science, to go into education, to go into research. And, I gave the example of research. For instance, the honey, I gave the example of honey and how that still has not yet been proven scientifically that it can be a cure of, for everyone. And the same is the case of, how in a hadith, the Holy Prophet ﷺ once stated that there is not an illness for every illness, God Almighty has sent a cure with it as well. This has still not seen, fruition in its complete sense. Then, for instance, Hazur, time and again, he encourages us to go into research, and I'll give an example of the convocation at Jamia Ahmadiyya. Hazur constantly instructs missionaries to go look into the Holy Quran, look at the various, because we believe the Holy Quran to be a universal book, which is for eternity. And that book has so many meanings, and I think anyone who's studied a bit about Arabic or a bit of the Holy Quran, he will, attest to the fact that each Arabic word in the Holy Quran has so many meanings, and it can have multiple meanings, which is, is a symbol of its beauty and its poetry. And the fact that the Holy Quran has so many commentaries, it tells us that there are still, in the present day, we've seen technological advancements of no other age. So with that, there have come new norms and new social, habits. For that, obviously, Khalifatul Masih requires us as his servants to go out there to find out the various meanings of the Holy Quran and then to write back to Hazrat Khalifatul Masih. This is an important point, to write back to him, get that, confirmed, because without that, then there is no unity. And to achieve the maximum benefit of that, you have to always come back to return to Hazrat Khalifatul Masih, get that authenticated, and then start promoting it if that is something that Hazrat Khalifatul Masih endorses. But these are just, there's so many things that, we can all go out and do. We can do our own part. But the importance of education is there. And I think that is something that we must all take back with us.
So before I come to you, Amr Sahib, Bilal Sahib is with us on the line. You won't be able to see him, but you will be able to talk to him. So if you want to ask a new question, maybe.
Yes, he can hear me now.
Yes,
can you hear me, Bilal Sahib?
yes, I can hear you.
Bilal Sahib, I'll ask you the same question because we didn't hear that properly. The same question is that how in this age have the Khulafai Ahmadiyyat and Khalifatul Masih Khamis as well, may Allah be his helper, outlined the way forward for the Ahmadiyya Muslim community and members of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community to be the best in the world in education and to be the most innovative? How can you describe this in 60 seconds?
Yes, the promised Messiah والسلام, and all of our five caliphs, they have been emphasizing on the Holy Quran. We should base our research on Holy Quran. And just like the fifth caliph, he
gave some addresses at UNESCO and Amra conference recently, he also emphasized that Ahmadi researchers should base their research on the Holy Quran. And they should think that all of the world, this is built for the betterment of humanity. So he said that we Ahmadi researchers, because we have a vision that it is created by God, all this universe, and created for the betterment of mankind. So if we ponder our research on the Holy Quran, we can move forward like than the other scientists of this age, because we have the Holy Quran and we have the purpose that why is it built for the betterment of humanity. So I think all of our caliphs, they have emphasized a lot, and that's why we have IEEE, organization that IEEE to promote research and education. That's why the Caliph presented.
Bilal Sahib, you gave a very good answer, a very strong answer. I think he covered some important points. I think the main thing to take away for Bilal Sahib and the others, what Hazur was saying, he quoted from many academics that there's 1.6 billion Muslims, or however many there are, and yet only 2 Muslims have ever won the Nobel Prize. And so it's a great challenge for Ahmadi Muslim researchers and scientists to now reach the highest echelons. And he said that the third caliph, Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmad, may Allah be pleased with him, he had set up these awards for academic excellence, these gold medal awards we see now, even now in the Jalsa. And at the time, his purpose was that when Dr. Salam got the Nobel Prize, or when he was studying, that there should be 100 such people, and yet we have not yet achieved that. And I've experienced this myself in Review of Religion. Qasir Sahib has given some examples from Al-Hakam. I'm sure Momin Sahib himself from Jamia will give similar examples. Hazur's thinking is so much greater and wider than what we imagine. So I'll give you an example. Last year we went for a team mulaqat with Hazur, and we had many researchers and academics, and one of the top professors, she was presenting a research on alcohol, and Hazur said, no, this is not enough. Just to do a limited survey, I want you to go and look at the worldwide survey to the highest level, and then prove the disadvantages of alcohol. And so she did this, and then she did this combined with a missionary, and they found in the worldwide survey that was done, one of the biggest surveys, that the latest research shows that where before they were saying you can drink one glass of wine a week and it's no harm, the latest research shows that the actual way to remove yourself from the harms of alcohol is to have 0%, like no alcohol at all. So it's amazing that, as Qasir Sahib was saying, there's some things that still science has to prove. But this is just one example of something the Quran said 1400 years ago, that today, through extensive research, it's proved true. And this is what the Khulafa expect from us. They expect us to go beyond and to do the best, and to really reach the highest levels will require a lot of effort and dedication. And one thing, I was reading something of the second caliph, when he set up the Fazl Umar Research Institute, it just came to my mind. At the time, he said, I only have 2 or 3 researchers here, and the world has hundreds of thousands. We have just a little bit of money, and the world has millions of pounds, of dollars, or whatever it is, or you can say. He said that some of our people, they just work 5-6 hours and they get tired, whereas people outside are working 10 hours a day in their labs. So this, again, we see the pattern of the Khulafa. He basically said that we have to work double the effort. We have less resources. We have less connections at the moment. So we have to work even harder to reach that level of Dr. Salam. Our academics will have to work supremely hard and base everything on the Holy Quran and the inspiration it gives.
And I think this is something Hazrat Muslim Maud, the founder of Majlis Khudam al-Ahmadiyya, he always, in his various, poetry, in his prose, in his writings, he's always encouraged people to not go for the smallest sort of objective, the smallest goal. Always set your objectives very high. In his couplets, in his writings, time and again, you see this was his hallmark, that you should always set your goals high. Even if it's higher than what you can possibly attain, at least somewhere below that you will attain that. But you should always set your objectives high rather than setting your ambitions low or just moderate ambitions.
Thank you very much to the judges. Now to you at home, the lines are open. Go to www.mta.tv/face-to-face and cast your vote. In the meantime, we're going to show you a short clip of our semi-finalists and some of the answers that they sent us for the semi-finals. And after that, we're going to announce the results. Here we go.
Assalamu alaikum. So the Promised Messiah Islam spoke about 2 types of main signs that are shown in support of a true Jamaat of Allah, and these are the assistance of Allah in the face of opposition and the individual purification of souls that takes place in such a Jamaat.
When we talk about the subject of morality, really first we have to decide what is it that morality means. does morality mean simply to do good or do the right thing? Actually, when we use the word morality, morality has two aspects. It has the outer aspect, of course, which is that what you do, but it also has the inner aspect of that which you believe.
So in this world, who will determine what is morally good and what is morally wrong? Because it is absolutely wrong to assume that everyone knows what is good and what is wrong. And because science itself cannot give an answer to the question where moral comes from and from where it originates, who will determine in this atheistic world what is morally good and what is morally wrong?
Allah Almighty says in the Holy Quran in Surah Taha, وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنِ افْتَرَى. That is to say that an impostor never flourishes, prospers and succeeds in his work or his mission. And the same applies to his community also, because that's what happened to the impostor Musaylama Kazzab and his followers, or Mahdi Sudani or his followers in the 19th century. Now about Jamaat Ahmadiyya, it's been 130 years since its establishment, and it has continued to grow in numbers, to prosper, to flourish so much that today it has established itself in more than 200 countries of the world.
All right. These were our semi-finalists and finalists, and then the reply that they sent us for the semi-final. Just a short recap. In the meantime, we have collected the votes, we have looked at them, and there is a winner. Yusuf Pendersahib from Ireland, congratulations. You have won this year's third season of Face to Face. And congratulations actually to all of the contestants. So Uzair Ahmed Sahib from the Czech Republic, Haris Pervez Sahib from Germany, and Bilal Tariq Sahib from Burkina Faso. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for taking part. And at the end of the day, I think everybody's a winner.
Yes, no doubt, no doubt, Raza Sahib. I believe everyone, like from the all four contestants that we have today, all four, they did really well. But obviously there had to be a winner. And the winner was Yusuf Pendersahib. But at the same time, I want to congratulate to all the other three contenders who could not win the contest, obviously, but they did really well. Their answers were well.
It's like seeing somebody grow up slowly, because I was listening to Haris Pervez Sahib's answer, and he was including the same things that you've mentioned over and over again, Hazur's sermons, then articles here, then from the Holy Quran, specific ahadith, and they've grown over these past few years.
I believe not just my own feedback, but I can see them taking feedback from all our respected judges. Yeah. So that's what I've seen. And I feel this was such an honestly strong final. And in the interval, we were discussing that, how are we going to, decide the winner? And I think it really came down to really fine details on a little bit of delivery, a little bit of content. As you mentioned, all of them did so good. And I think what, for me, Yusuf Sahib, what made him win it is that second 60-second question. Everyone came back, but he came back so strong. We were surprised at how was he able to, at the click of a finger, come up with that information so strongly, and that's very impressive. And I believe that little fine detail, while everyone was so strong, they've taken the feedback. It was really fine margins that decided it. But congratulations to everyone.
For me, it was. I hope I'm not disclosing too much. I don't want to, make enemies.
Well, you're gonna have to find it out with the judges.
No. With the judges, I'm fine. But it was a very close call for me between Yusuf Pendersahib and Uzair Sahib. Yusuf Pendersahib, I've seen him since. I believe he took part last year, but I'm pretty sure he took part in the first year. And I've seen his arguments. Just, the trajectory has just gone higher, much higher. I remember at the start, his performance then and now, there's been, a drastic improvement. And this year, I've been very, very, very surprised, in a very good way, pleasantly surprised.
All right.
With his performance, mashallah.
Amr Safi Sahib, Tawmum Zahid Sahib, Qasid Sahib, Jazakumullah. By far, no doubt, you guys had the hardest job, the toughest job. But I think I speak on behalf of all of the audience as well, that all of the tips and all of the guidelines that you have given, of course, in the light of what the Promised Messiah Islam has said, what the teachings of Islam are, and of course, right now, the Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Khamis Sayyidullah Ta'ala says these. Yusuf Pendersahib, quickly, we're not going to give you 60 seconds, you probably have 6 seconds, but congratulations for winning the third season, and how do you feel?
I can't believe it. I'm actually in my village at the moment with my parents, and I'm actually in the room which I was in 15 years ago when I converted to Islam. So I can't believe it. It's amazing. The other speakers were, I feel, much better than me. Everyone, you deserve to win. It's a great blessing of Allah. I'm actually just very, very surprised. I wasn't expecting this goal.
Well, congratulations from all of us here from MTA as well. Inshallah, we'll be seeing you very, very soon. To you at home as well, thank you very much for watching the third season of Face to Face. The year is coming to an end, and from all of us here, we'd like to thank you again for watching and keep us in your prayers. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
In exactly the same way that the Holy Prophet ﷺ knew that what God is telling me is the truth. He never stopped preaching. And in the same way, we won't stop preaching.
It's against the teaching of Islam to force anyone into belief, which is la ikraha fi din. There's no compulsion in matters of faith.